Hi guys, and welcome back to the Ride Right Waxing and UK one wheel channel. So back to the thing that kind of started my channel, waxing skis and snowboards. It's basically a hobby of mine, and I kind of do this as a bit of relaxation. Don't watch too much TV, but do watch a lot of YouTube. And yeah, if you are liking what you see, I've got some other garden videos going to be coming. I would be out on my one wheel today, but the weather is really bad, and Tom is having an absolute mare with his board. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to get my board ready for the up and coming season. Off to the plan in January to have a rip around, and I thought I'd give it a service. So why not? Anyway, let's get into this. Right, what we're going to do now is the side edge. Now this is quite cool. This Ski Man bench, you can sit it upright, or you can sit it kind of like a 45-degree angle. I'm going to work on the 45-degree angle. The base of this board isn't too bad. It's nice and flat. It hasn't got any really heavy gouging, so I was very fortunate to catch any rocks. Got a couple on the rails here. This is where the grip tech technology is, which is slightly semi-bulbous. If I stand it upright, you may be able to see that profile on the board just there. And that obviously gives your heel and your toe a little bit more grip when on the mountain. So little tip though, if you are going to store your board away, just make sure it's really dry. You can use this Zardos Pocket Puck. This stuff is just awesome. It's like a liquid Teflon. If you dry the board and you cover your rails in it, it's fully water repellent, so it'll stop your rails from going rusty. Store your board somewhere warm and dry. Don't put it somewhere damp, and that way when you get it out to service it, you haven't got quite as much work to get it looking ship shape. You can store it as storage wax. Like I say, this board has been sat around now for 18 to 20 months because obviously didn't go last year. And that's pretty much about it. I'm going to use a Ski Man roller bearing side profiler. You've got the direction there on the Swiss made file blade, which obviously you've got to take it in that direction. I then will follow it up with a blue diamond stone, making sure that the angle is 89 on both, so we catch the same angle. And that way then with a little bit of liquid, I can really polish that side up and get a super sharp, shiny edge. And I'm going to do that to both sides. And then we're going to work on the base. So I'm going to pop you on time lapse. I'm going to do this side. I'm going to do that side. And what I will do, I'll go over to the ends, but to save myself from catching, I use a Gummy Stone, which is like a rubberized sanding block. And I just take the edges back a bit into about here, and I dull off the edges. So hopefully then preventing less catching on your nose and your tail. But like I say, this is a full cambered board, so it bends. As in, if you're stood on it, it bends like this. So it's not a rocker like that. It's actually a cambered like a banana board. So that you tend to find doesn't give you too much issues, but I'll still dull the edges down just at the front and the back of the rail. Right, let's get into time lapse and let's sharpen this one up with this and this, and off we go. Let's crack on. Okay, they are nice and sharp. The first part has been done. What you would have found, what I have been doing, is I use the brush. This is not my waxing brush, it's just a metal brush. So between each side pass I do with the file, which is obviously the base, the side rail file, I wipe the file off, clear any debris. Sometimes you pick up a little bit of side rail, the composite material in there, so I just clear that out with a little pointy screwdriver like so, and it just clears it up so it doesn't clog. Brush it out again so you get a nice clean file, and then just go over it in one direction. The diamond stone is just brilliant. A little bit of base cleaner on there, and that really does sharpen it up. An absolute treat. So that's polished that up nicely. I'm going to do the same now with the base. The base itself is slightly different. This is a Ski Man base bevel that I've got. I do run a diamond stone in this. I will also be running my big file, which I put somewhere. Like so, new data wax file. And again, you can choose the degrees. I'm normally between 0.75 and 1 degree on the base. So around 8.8, and that basically locks onto the rail like so, and then you would just take it down the board and sharpen the rails. And I'll do the same again. I use the file, and then from the file into the diamond stone, and then the rails are all done. We'll just dull down, like I say, the edges top and bottom, and then we'll get on and clean the base. We'll keep sweeping, because obviously the metal files that come off the rails can dig into the base of the board, and you don't want that. If you do get a few little bits, to be fair, it's not the end of the world, but you don't want to be forcing anything into the base of the board if you can help it. So that is where we are. So I'm going to get onto the base now. I'm going to put you back on time lapse, use a file, and just simply go up and down the board. Again, watching out for this grip technology, because obviously the board comes out and then back in. So it's just trying to make sure you follow the contour of the board. You can see the actual file there moving on both sides. And we'll get this nice and sharp, then we'll get some wax on it. Okay, just so you can see what is what with it all, you can see these very fine lines in the rail as you go along, and it stops there, just there, look. And that's why I've just popped that on like so, and given it a very gentle drag, and it just sharpens it up, as you can just see there. You've got to be ever so careful, because that there is just a file mark, so me just dropping the file on there. But we'll brush that off. That's the bits there going that way. You want it to get it a nice uniform flat finish like that, and obviously opposed to this is how the rail was before. So we're going to get this cleaned up. Like I say, the board definitely needs some wax on it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to drag that all the way along like so. You just like that. Okay. And it leaves more of a uniform finish on the bottom. So you can see what actually that does, and then it collects the material like so. And that's the material you take off. Now that file doesn't touch, because the actual profile of the base, as you can see, is very close, but these black bits here just keep the rest of the file off the board, and these locating lugs here is basically what you run the file along the edge of the board like so. And yeah, that's the material you take off to get your sharpness back. So I just thought I'd show you that. Right, back to time lapse, and we'll get this finished. Okay, so there's all the filings that have come off, little twisty bits of metal off the rail, and we've got it looking nice and sharp. So we've got a nice sharp edge on there. We're going to clean up this base now, so I'm going to do a citrus clean just quickly, make sure we've got all any metal filings off, clean that right down. We'll give it a quick brush over, and I'll talk you through it. So pop me back on time lapse, and let's work into the base of this board. Okay guys, use this grind busting green stuff, acidic cleaner. Just going to wipe the base of the board over to get any surplus metal off, and then I'm going to go into the copper brush with a little bit of horsehair, and then just rub some structure back into the board and get ready for waxing. So that's this one here. So this is this Toko brush. You rub it in one direction, and basically just opens up the structure back in the board. This kind of like gets rid of any surplus wax also, and then we'll get the hair dryer out and dry it all up, make sure it's all ready to go, warm the base up, open up the pores, ready for it to accept some new wax. So yeah, so we've got the metal scrapers just here, and that'll just kind of clean up any loose material on the base, and you'll see me do that as well. So yeah, let's get into tidying this up, making sure it's ready to accept some wax. took off some high spots with my nice flat scraper. Made a couple of bits just down here. And now it was a little bit of swarf, which obviously I didn't catch from doing the edges. So I've got all of that out the base, because you don't want that swarf in the base of the board. And then I use the copper brush, obviously going down the board like so. And that just kind of opens it up, puts all your direction back in. One thing you mustn't do is do it this way. Do not do it that way. It goes down the board. A bit like combing a horse, I suppose. Never combed a horse, but I can imagine that's what it's like. So yes, so that's all done. I've given it another quick wipe over with some citrus cleaner, just to make sure the base is super clean and there is no swarf of debris on there. And then what I'm going to do now is warm up the base of the board with a hairdryer, and then we'll get some wax added to the base of this board, and yeah, be pretty much ready to go. So it's looking nice and good. Now I have found a little bit of rust on the nose of my board. No, beg your pardon, the tail of my board, which I'm going to show you in a second. And I use a Gummy Stone for that. Has no real effect to riding. It doesn't actually touch the snow too much unless you're in powder. But that is just up on the end up here. So I'm going to quickly just show you that. I'll show you my Gummy Stone and what that does. It's always quite handy to have that with you. If you've got a real nasty nick or something in your rail, you can just dull it down so it's not catching on anything. And yeah, so we're going to put some wax on, but first of all I'm going to show you that and show you how I clean up the rusty bit, and obviously the tool to do the job. Got a little bit of just surface rust there from the nose of the board. That's obviously been touching something wet, which is annoying. Gummy Stone, quite a well used Gummy Stone. It's quite squeezy, squeezy, but this will just tidy this up. So again, just rub on it, and it just literally is a very soft sandpaper. And that'll just take that rust away. I'll give this a wipe over in a minute. And if like magic, we're done. And this is the same tool that I use to dull down the actual edges. So if I just quickly pan you up just quickly. So these edges here, I just run it a couple of passes. Spin the camera around. Couple of passes either side, and vice versa. If I just quickly took you up there, down to the other end of the board. Yeah, there we go. So we're going to give this another quick wipe over, just because obviously we're going to have some of this grit. I want to get that all off, so we're going to give the board another quick citrus wipe. I'll pop you back in the stand, then we'll apply the wax. Okay, so you just see me hair dry the board, and that's just purely to make sure there's no moisture from the actual citrus cleaner. And you can see the dryness of the board. I'm going to get some nice fresh wax laid in there. There's your burnt step-ons. Absolutely loving them. Do need to take that sticker off the back though. Yeah, purpose-made bench. So I've got my P-Tex in there, my lighters. I've got my little stand here, so that's where that normally stores. And then when I'm using it, it sits just there. We've got the temperature of this bad boy. Yeah, coming up to 120, which is the melt temperature for the wax. We've got my little boxes are made. I've got just under here, so basically everything falls down these holes, and I pull this out and it collects it all, as you can tell. It saves it falling on all my tools underneath, and I've pulled two little straps there. slider with all my ski stuff, tools and stuff on, which is quite cool. So yeah. But yeah, board is nice and ready to accept some fresh wax. Okay, wax time. So we've got a little block of data wax here. This is universal stuff. This is really, really good. It goes on really well, spreads really well, and also is really easy to take off. The melting temperature for this is about 115. Always a good measure for any wax is make sure that if it starts to smoke when obviously put with the iron, then obviously turn the temperature down. And what we're going to do is melt this on the iron and drip it around the board. And then we're going to do lots of passes. So basically just melt it onto the iron, like so, and we drip it on. It's on really, but never mind, it's my board. And then we're just going to iron it on, like so. And we're going to do this now and make sure that the wax itself gets a good coverage across the whole board, and also we're warming up the core of the board, opening up those pores. So this takes a little bit of time to do properly. My garage is actually quite cold here at the moment, so as you can see the wax itself is drying on itself. So we're just going to melt the wax. So I'm going to speed things up. Okay guys, what I'm just quickly doing here is I'm doing a very slow pass up and down the board. For the simple reason, I'm trying to get the warmth in the board. So the board itself is now starting to feel nice and warm, and it's starting to hold its warmth in the board, which is opening up the pores, accepting that wax. Not quite hot enough yet. As you can see, I'm feeling the underside of the board. And once you can feel the underside of the board being warm, the actual heat itself is radiating through the board, opening up those pores. You can see the areas that are drying, that aren't holding the board, from where the screw marks are in the center, because that's expanding the heat or expelling the heat quickly. Same here on the rear of the board. And I'm just going to do this because I like to make sure I get the board nice and warm. You don't want to get it too hot where you keep doing this for hours, because obviously you don't want it to separate the glue that holds the board together, and you do not want to leave the iron in one place. A bit like ironing clothes, you don't want to be leaving the iron in one place because you'll burn the board. But it's just gently backwards and forwards, taking your time, just making sure you get that nice slug type pattern off the back of the iron that's not drying instantly. Okay, so board is back out of the hot room, and I've got that now on my bench. It's in the garage here. It is mega cold out here, so hence I've got my hat on, keep me warm. But this is quite a workout to get all this wax off. Basically, I've got a nice big long scraper, as you can see there, and it's going to take that off. I've got my favourite little one here, and I've got a Toco base scraper, plastic scraper sharpener. So I basically just run this through, making sure I get that nice and sharp and square, so we've got a nice sharp cutting edge. And then we simply will just use your thumbs and you just apply a bit of pressure and basically take the wax off. Now we want to get as much of this wax off the board as possible. Then we're going to use a nylon brush and scrape the actual board all the way down through, pulling that out of all the structure of the board, and then we'll give a really good polish up with a horsehair brush. So I'm going to pop you on time lapse. Basically you're just going to see me doing a lot of this, pulling as much of that off as possible. So let's start stripping. Okay guys, so got all the wax off, and what you can actually do is by running your hand over the board, you feel it nice and smooth, and then you'll hit like a little bit, say just here, and your fingers will just catch slightly, and that's where there's still a bit of residue of wax. So the board feels ever so smooth, and you get this bit here, so you just literally just get your scraper. It's not going to be a lot, as you can just see there, just taking that little bit off there. That way we're going to get it perfectly smooth. I will say my little ski waxing bench I built is working out a treat, so very happy with that. Nylon brush, that's just basically pulling out all the little ball bearings. You can see just a little here of wax out of all the structure of the board. And yeah, it's feeling good. So we're going to use horsehair brush. They do these ones here on a roller, and you put it on a drill. I would love one of those, but I've got to service a few more skis and get a few more people to watch my videos. And you never know, I might treat myself one day. But yeah, this just takes a lot of work. So you just basically run it all over. And what I'm going to do now is hit it with a horsehair brush. So horsehair brush, not that one, I apologise. Pulled it out of number 3, short hair horsehair brush, and that will give the base end a really good polish up. So we'll just go over the board and really polish the bottom of the board, and then from doing so we'll do lots of passes in one direction, so we really kind of like just open up the structure of it. And then we'll apply some Zardos Teflon to the bottom of the board, which obviously will seal the rails and stop them going rusty. And we'll have a look at the finished product. So yeah, stay tuned. Let's quickly get into this. Back onto time lapse. We're going to hit it with a horsehair brush. For you, it will be seconds. For me, it'll be 20 or so minutes. And yeah, we'll see what it looks like. Different brush for taking the wax off, and a different brush for the metal filings. And that way then we're not contaminating the bottom of the board, and we're leaving it nice and slick and nice and clean. And off we go. Okay guys, looking nice and swanky, I must say so myself. Let me give you a bit of a profile. Yeah, it's come up really well. Lovely and shiny. I'll try and put a before picture up so you can see how dry the rails were. So it definitely is worth maintaining your snowboard and getting it waxed and serviced if you can. Obviously, like I say, if you want to store it with wax on, like I said at the beginning of the video, then great. But if not, make sure your board is in top performance, because you pay a lot of money to go skiing. So why not have your gear in tip-top condition? You might have all the clobber, like we said before in one of my previous videos. But obviously this is what matters. This is what gets you down the mountain, the edges, the performance, the speed, and basically the fun factor. So yeah, always maintain your stuff. I would recommend that. I like to keep all my stuff looking good. But I'm really pleased how this has turned out. I am missing the trails, like I say. It's a bit of a difference from the one wheeling. The weather's been pretty bad. That's why I thought I'd service my board. So like you say, I'm off to La Plan in January. Fingers crossed if COVID doesn't kick in and ruin our holiday for a second year. And yeah, I've got Tom's ski blades or ball blades or whatever they call it to service. These are wicked. He's absolutely nuts on these. These are real fun trick skis. Absolutely awesome they are. Ski boards, that's what they're called. I couldn't think of it in the moment. But yeah, if you're in the Devon area and you want your skis waxed or your snowboard waxed and serviced, then hook me up through Instagram. Obviously do check me out there. Facebook, I have a website, www.riderightwaxing.co.uk. It's a bit out of date, I could do with updating it. But yeah, that is me. Thank you very much indeed for watching, guys. Though, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, and until next time, until something else that I bring you, I just love bringing content. Stay tuned, and I will see you soon.